Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed will be here very, very soon, and that could be 5 minutes, it could be 50. Don't really know with Reed sometimes. But thank you for joining the Burgundy Zone tonight. We are a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. And the title of tonight's episode is the Runnin the Fortier, because we got our friend, Mr. Sam Fortier of the Washington Post. Thank you for blessing us on this Thursday, stormy Thursday evening, sir. How you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for having me, and I do indeed like that title.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? And speaking of, I do want to ask you because Michael Penix recently last week ran the 40. I think he ran a 4.5, 4.6. It was very, very good. And speaking of the title of the episode, but can you kind of give us an update on the 30 visits? Because, I think Jim Nagy on Twitter bumped it again saying, like, it's not top 30 visits because you only get 30, so it's just a 30 visit. Can you kind of give us an update on who's being scheduled to come in and visit with the Commanders?
Yeah, so I haven't reported these, but I've seen reports out there about some different offensive linemen, some quarterbacks, Chop Robinson from Penn State. Obviously, they're going to bring in the quarterbacks and they're going to bring in all the top guys. They're doing their homework, right? Like, I think that Adam Peters knows the number 2 pick has the power to reshape this draft. And I know that he knows they have a lot more needs than quarterback too. So you got to be exhaustive. I don't think top 30 visits or 30 visits, as Jim Nagy would say, are perfect measures of interest. I think you're just doing your homework. Even if you know, like, hey, we're not going to draft this guy. You just want to get a sense of where he's at. So kind of like combine meetings, right? And especially Senior Bowl meetings, especially informal meetings, you are meeting with guys, but it's not always to say, hey, we're going to draft you. And I think that, like, people should appreciate that nuance with these 30 visits, right? So I would say, but obviously with the quarterbacks, with Jaden Daniels, with Drake May, JJ McCarthy, like, you're doing your homework on those guys. And I think it is notable that Caleb Williams' only 30 visit reportedly is with Chicago, because I think everybody knows that's what's going to happen. So I would say take these with a grain of salt, keep it in context, and that's where we're at.
And Sam, what do you have a hobby that you like to do? Are you into cars, video games? What are you into?
Wow, this is a good question. I really like 2 things. I like bicycling around the city. I love seeing DC that way. And I love playing poker, man. Like, I play poker with my friends. I play it at MGM. Like, I'm a big poker fan.
Oh, then you fit in really well with us here, big poker fans as well. But in terms of hands, let's say Texas Hold'em, it's a hand. What hand would you say, like, Jaden Daniels to you is, or what hand Drake May is to you?
Wow, this is definitely my favorite interview question that I've gotten, like, in a minute, man. Okay, so I think that we got to start with acknowledging that the hit rate on, like, number 1 pick quarterbacks, even guys that are supposed to be slam dunks, like Trevor Lawrence, like, you still see some growing pains. And if we use that metric, I'm going to say nobody is pocket aces. I would have to say that, man, this is tough. I would say that, like, Jaden Daniels and Drake May, who I see as very comparable, even though they're not the same player, they're different strengths and weaknesses. I see them as relatively this, like, they're both very talented, very good prospects, even though they're different. I would probably say that they're like queens, maybe.
Okay.
If we're talking like Caleb Williams is kings, maybe ace king I can see, but I would probably say. And I guess if you were to take the pessimistic view on Jaden Daniels, you could say, oh, well, he's got the injury concerns, he's got the frame, maybe he's jacks. But obviously, like, it's a very good pocket pair. And so I would probably settle on, like, Drake May and Jaden Daniels being queens.
And it truly, and to put this into a metaphoric in a kind of way, it truly doesn't matter what hand you have, right? It just depends on what's dealt. Isn't that right, Sam?
Exactly. Like, that's a really good point, because, like, if you're shoving with Drake May and Jaden Daniels, you're for sure getting an ace or a king on the flop.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Kyle. How am I supposed to follow up with a question, like, based off what you just
have great questions, man.
I know. No, but so a lot's been made about, like, going into the season last season with Eric Bieniemy and all that. not to like talk about the past, but a lot of people thought that Jahan Dotson was going to be like that dude coming into the season, and obviously he had a disappointing year as far as like what people's expectations were, and probably his as well. Two-part question: do you think that he has a bounce back this year, and do you think that wide receiver is a need for this team, or do you think that it's more of like a want? Like when I say need, I mean like maybe like a top 40, top like third round at the max pick on the wide receiver position.
Oh, this is a good question, man. I mean,
Thank you.
look, I would say this is like to break it into two. Do I think Jahan Dotson will have a bounce back year? I do. And I think that there will probably be some growing pains uh because you're gonna have a rookie quarterback and he's gonna be, kind of bouncing around, right? And you're gonna have some ups and downs from him. But I think that Kliff Kingsbury, one of the things he's strongest at is designing a good pass game. And I think there's a lot of questions about the run game. Can he marry those actions? But scheming guys open and putting guys in the best matchups that they can, particularly when Arizona got DeAndre Hopkins. If you go back and watch that film, like he was really good at figuring that out. I mean, with Dan Quinn, it's like, I'm sure he was playing, he was defensive coordinator and he was like, wait a minute, D-Hop's he's not supposed to be in the slot. Now he is. He's got a good matchup. So I think Jahan will be put in better positions. And I think that them not being super aggro, throwing the ball all the time is actually going to help them. Now, when you talk about wide receivers, do I see this as a need for this team? I do, because even though they brought in some vets, even though they have De'Ami Brown, like I really think you have two solid, like locked-in options in Jahan and Terry, and I think you want to improve that. And obviously, receiver draft classes, like every year for the past 5 years, I feel like there's been a bunch of dudes, and like you're gonna find a starting caliber guy in the third.
I loves that, having a bunch of dudes.
And so I would say that I would say that that it's yeah, I would say they're going to draft one. I would feel pretty confident about that.
And welcome Mike Reed to the episode. How you doing, man?
Good. I'm just pumped that I'm back when Sam's back.
Right, I was on a streak of like 3 episodes in a row where I hadn't seen Reed. I was feeling great. So
you were so pumped about it. Yeah. I don't blame you, dude. I would have been too. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say that like I would dread when you came on here, but like I would be very upset sometimes.
So hey Reed, I mean, what's going on the whiteboard behind you? Like, is that a walrus? What's the deal?
There's a walrus because it looks like one of my coworkers. There's Joe Biden and there's Das Fior. Yeah, there's Donald J. Trump.
Man, I didn't realize we were on a political show. This is crazy, man.
I know, it's funny. People got mad at me one time. They're like, stop! Don't bring the political stuff in here. Just talk about sports. And I was like, did you just tell me to shut up and dribble? Is that what you guys are saying right now? No, but I don't care about politics. I think it's funny.
You got a question? You got a question for Sam Reed? Are you good?
I don't know what you guys have already asked, so I just want to know, Sam, how the heck you been, dude?
I've been good, man. It's been, I gotta tell you guys. So I just finished my 4th year covering the team. This is, my 5th draft cycle.
You're one of the best
last
there
time,
is.
What's that?
You're one of the best that there is. You're one of the most trustworthy people. You're putting out great content all the time.
All right, man. All right, don't gas me up. Don't do that. So I would say, like, when I got this job, right, it was like March 2020. Right when the pandemic started, and everybody knew that they were taking Chase Young at number 2. And the last 4 years or 3 years, they've had like middling picks, right? So it's been like kind of hard, like, who are they gonna take? This year, like, I think Washington is the draft, man. Like everybody knows Caleb's 1, and then who is Washington picking at 2 is a big deal. And like I was on the road for pro days, right? I went to Drake May and Jane Daniels's, and like that's the first time I'd been at like a big quarterback pro day. And like,
how would you compare those pro days?
So, okay, I mean, like,
sorry for cutting you off mid-sentence.
No. Like, here's the thing is I think that people got to chill on like the throwing sessions are a huge deal. Like
all those guys can throw at that stage, right?
Right, exactly. And like, yes, Drake May missed a couple like outs and he went right back and did it. But like, I don't know, I'm not super concerned about it. But I think the thing that was interesting is just watching those dudes interact with people in the building and kind of like how they were different. And I would say, so LSU's is like, and they had a bunch of like real prospects, right? it was loud, it was huge. There were like 150 media people there. There were just a bunch. It was a really packed event, and it was interesting to me to watch Jaden, because Jaden was like paying loose attention to most of his teammates, like doing the drills. He didn't do any of the drills except for the throwing session, and he was kind of wandering around. He was, going to say hi to, his agents or his friends or whatever, and he was kind of locked in. Like he wasn't super like paying attention. But then when Malik Neighbors stepped up to do the 40, to do the, to do any of the drills, like he was locked in. And he was like incredibly vocal. And he was like, hey, like, get up out of here. Like after he ran the 40, he chased him down. Drake May, I think UNC was a little smaller. It was a little quieter. And Drake May was kind of different in the sense that he was locked in on every player, but he was much more subtle, like, hey, little fist bumps, and like just seeing those dudes kind of interact with their teammates the last time they're going to be in that building probably was really interesting. I'm not saying that one of those guys is a better leader, or I don't know if there's
styles,
like a way to take that, but I saw a different sort of guy at each place, and I thought that was interesting.
No, that's super interesting.
Very interesting. It just speaks on the relationship aspect and leadership to your point. Now, to wrap this up, Sam, I only have a couple more questions for you, but a couple interviews from players over this past week. Sam Cosmi spoke to reporters yesterday, like to you and your colleagues, made a comment about this feeling like a new team and everything like that. Can you kind of speak on his quote there? Is that kind of an overall feeling that you feel around the building?
Also, I got a little more time today if like we want to go more. So that's
totally no, you're fine. Good, dude. I'm just kidding.
They're like, no, 15 minutes is actually the.
No, actually, 15 minutes is probably a little too much.
I mean, look, like when I went in that locker room at the end of last year, like it was just bleak, man. Everybody knew it was happening. Dudes, they were on an 8-game lose streak. Like it was just it sucked to be in there, and I think that like. When you come in and you see new faces and you see like the ownership is committed to giving you the resources you need and bringing in new people to build a good team, I think that's going to make you feel like, a lot better as a player, especially when you're putting your body on the line every week. Like the offense and the defense are mixed up in the locker room and it's not separated by position group anymore. And we feel great. We feel like it's, a new team basically. All that stuff is fine, but I was talking to John Keim about this yesterday. Like, I don't know how much stock to put in that. And I asked Tress, I was like, Tress, you've been through a couple different 3 or 4 new regimes. Everybody always comes in. They have their own slogan. They have the thing they want to put in the locker room. They got like their saying or whatever. And like, what does this mean? Like, can you tell that Dan Quinn is going to be the guy to like take you where you want to go? And he was like, yeah, man, like I'm sure every team kind of feels this way at this time of year. And to me, it comes down to, do they draft the right quarterback? Like if Houston had botched last year and CJ Stroud wasn't CJ Stroud, it doesn't matter what DeMeco Ryans says. It doesn't matter like what those dudes are doing, but they hit. Now it's like, like they're the favorites to win the South. Like they have a dude that's going to go toe to toe with Mahomes in the playoffs ? Like, right. I mean, it's really nice what's going on right now, and I'm happy they're happy going to work. But like, is this team on the upward trajectory? Check back on September 10th or whatever it is.
Yeah, it literally all depends. Yeah, you're right. So don't choke, Adam Peters. Hey, don't choke, B Rabbit. Don't choke, Rabbit. Don't go throwing up in the bathroom beforehand because you're nervous. Just hit it, dude.
Right. Hall, do you have a question for Sam?
Yeah. So I think the 5th-year option for Jamin Davis is coming up in May, if I'm correct, right?
Mm-hmm. The deadline's like May 2nd, something like that.
Okay. Do you see them picking that up? And just even if they don't pick it up, what do you see Jamin Davis's usage as this year? Just because they got Bobby Wagner, they got Luvu, they got other linebackers in the room now. So what do you see his usage as going into the 2024 season?
Good question. And because I've been so locked in on quarterbacks, I don't know the number off the top of my head. I think it's like 10 or 11 mil if they pick up the 5th-year option, but don't quote me on that. I'm sure the listener can know that to look it up or whatever. But like, I would be surprised if they picked it up, just because like that's a premium number for a guy who has not had premium production. And I think that he will be put in a better position to succeed this year because of the defensive coaches that he has. And I base that mostly on like Dan Quinn figured out how to use his personnel in Dallas. And I am not saying that he has Micah Parsons on this defense by any means, but I think that he like Dan Quinn's whole thing is superpower, right? Like he loves saying, like, I got to figure out their superpower and I got to figure out how to let them use it. And so, can you put him in a better position? Can Ken Norton, the linebackers coach, figure out like, all right, we want this dude to be able to match up with tight ends and running backs, and we want to, especially on those wheel routes, like we need him to be a little better. I think he could. I think that because Jamin is so fast and athletic, I think they will figure out how to use him better as a blitzer and just let him like get after the quarterback. I think that is something they believe he can do and that he can do more of. And yeah, there are other dudes in that room that can do it. But I would be surprised if he didn't have an uptick in production just based on scheme and the talent around him.
Okay. My question for you, sir. I kind of talked about Sam Cosmi already, but Washington had labeled him as a tackle. Have you heard anything of that sort?
No, I would be surprised. I think he was listed as a tackle since his rookie year, right? Like that's not changed.
Yeah, but fans made a big stir about it, like it was a possibility of happening. But like everyone that I've talked to said, no, you keep him where he is. That's where he has success.
I was about to say, yeah, if you switch him again, like you give him to the league as a tackle or guard, whatever, they keep doing it, and it was like, stop, just let him stick somewhere.
So my real question, I didn't ask you
feels
before.
the same way.
Right,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I wanted to ask you before I didn't get to, but my question for you is, what's more likely to happen in your personal opinion? Drafting J.J. McCarthy at 2 or trading down from 2?
C, none of the above. No, I mean, like, look, I get why people like JJ, and I should say that off top because, like, I do think he is a compelling prospect. I remain in the camp that it's going to be between Daniels and McCarthy, and I know that like people smarter than me have said, oh, like the value in trading down is right there. It's obvious, but like. I still think that's the right move. I still think that's the thing they're going to do. Josh Harris, we talked to him on Tuesday, or I guess last week. Time is running together. When we talked to him in Orlando at the owners' meetings, and he was like, "Look, number 2 is a hugely important pick, and we know we have to get it right, and we know that like we need a quarterback basically." And I would be very surprised if they traded down, even though like because if you believe JJ's that dude, I think sticking and picking is like still the right decision because if you think JJ's that dude and you're like, oh well, we can play armchair GM and move down a couple spots. Like, what if another team comes up and they take JJ and that's your dude? Like, I don't think Adam Peters in his first draft, where he has the number 2 pick and he has the chance to revitalize a historic organization that's been downtrodden for 2 decades, is like going to play around with that. I don't think he's going to. But so if I had to pick, I would say McCarthy, but I don't think those are the likeliest outcomes.
Okay. My next question for you is pertaining to the running backs. Added Austin Eckler here in the offseason, having Brian Robinson here. How do you expect their usage to be? Because, Eckler in his press conference to you guys, well aware that he said he wanted to go to a place where he would be a good complement to the number 1 running back. So how do you think those two are going to work well? How do you think they're going to be used? I know you're not in the coaching staff, but just your opinion.
It's a good question. And I think that I'm going to step back for a second because I think the big criticism of Kliff Kingsbury as an offensive play caller in Arizona was not just like the fading down the stretch part, but it was the run game. Like it wasn't married to the pass game and it didn't always create hesitation. If you go back and watch some of the play action fakes that Kyler ran, especially out of the pistol in, what was it, 19, 20, 21, like you're not getting the reaction from the linebackers that you want to get all the time. And I think that's because linebackers could key on, okay, like if they're in this certain formation or if they use this action, like we don't have to respect the run in the same way. That's why you bring in Anthony Lynn as run game coordinator, obviously someone who's very familiar with Austin Eckler from his Chargers days. And that was my first job covering the Chargers in 18 with A. Lynn and Eckler. And I got to tell you, just real quick, Eckler was the backup to Melvin Gordon at the time. And I would go into the corner of the locker room and talk to Melvin a fair amount because Melvin was like a good quote. He was like friendly to the media. And I was always like, oh, this dude Austin, like, like he had some third down back reps and he was cool. But I remember one day I was walking around the locker room and somebody was talking about being the strongest dude in the weight room. Maybe it was like Brandon Meebane, the defensive tackle or something. And I was like, and I asked because it was it was like in the locker room, it was Melvin over here, and then it was like Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates right here. And I walked past Antonio Gates and I was like, okay, who do you think is the strongest dude in the locker room, pound for pound? And he was like, Eckler, no doubt. Like, clear to him. Defensive tackles, Justin Jones was there at that time. Casey Hayward was a corner. It was Derwin James' rookie year. And like almost unanimously, everyone was like, dude, Austin, pound for pound in the gym, like it's crazy. And the dude doesn't take supplements, but like, or he at least he didn't at that time. But I remember just being very impressed with like that dude's professionalism and how he took care of his body, which now that I've rambled for like 2 minutes and Reed is trying to like, figure out how to boot me off the Zoom.
I'm not trying to boot you off the Zoom. I want you to call. You can talk the whole time, dude. Honestly, you're more interesting than Kyle. That's for sure.
How they're using. I mean, like I think you're gonna see B-Rob be some version of what he was last year, right? Like running downhill, being in between the tackles, used as a pass catcher, as a changeup. But I think you're going to see Eckler more as the third down guy. And I do think when you go back and watch his tape from last year, I know he had that injury. I think he's got more to offer than you would think, just looking at his most recent tape and talking to people around the league. I think they thought, hey, that's a pretty good value signing for the Commanders, particularly if they can scheme it right. I think that is, to me, the biggest question is, can they scheme it right and can they marry these things? Because like these all-star staffs you see get put together, right? Like, sometimes it works. I thought like, RG3's rookie year, there were some good coaches on that staff. I don't know if you guys have heard. But obviously
also, did you know Logan Thomas was a quarterback?
That dude, great. That's a good one. So that worked out. But the Frank Reich Panthers did not work out. Can they figure out how to do this thing together? That's up to Kliff, man. And I think this is a huge chance for Kliff because I have another story actually. So in 2017, I was working for The Ringer, which is like a website in LA run by Bill Simmons. And I was doing a story about college football team chaplains in the South. It was like right after DeAndre Hopkins had been baptized at Clemson, and people were like, whoa, like, can you do that? Like, Dabo's like kind of wild. And so I was doing a story about them, and the dude that I happened to be writing about was this guy named Bobby Dagnall, who was the team chaplain for Texas Tech. So I spent a week in Lubbock, Texas, and it just happened to be like Kliff Kingsbury was the coach there. So I spent a lot of time with Kliff, and everybody was always telling me, man, like, oh, Kliff gets here at 4 a.m., first one in, last one out, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Everybody says that. And I heard it so much, I was like, all right, like, I gotta test this out. So I got up and I got to the facility at like 3:45. And I'm like, it's like Lubbock, Texas must have been like July or something. It was like right when they had started off-season program. And it's like cool in the morning out there in West Texas. So I'm sitting out in the front of the facility, and white Escalade pulls in, 4:01 a.m. Kliff Kingsbury pops out. I'm like, dang, like this dude's for real. And he walks up, he's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, well, everybody said you were gonna be here. I had to come like figure it out. And he was like, okay, cool. So we went inside and we went into the gym. He always gets a workout in the morning, and then we went into his office, and I was sitting there and like. He got there at 4 because he was the head coach, right? And he wanted to work out and he wanted to like think through offensive game plans before like all the other stuff that comes with being a head coach would get on his plate because he loves offensive football. He loves designing offense, particularly pass game. So like I just remember, man, like I walked into his office and he had this big whiteboard and it was like red and green, like marker, all these like different offensive plays that he was drawing up. And I was just like, if this dude was ever just like an offensive coordinator and they were just like, hey, you should focus on offense, I think that he would be like really good at that. And obviously, head coach at Tech, head coach in Arizona, he had a lot of other things going on. But this, and obviously last year he was kind of an analyst, but like, I am fascinated personally to see if that dude who I saw in 2017, when he gets a chance to just design an offensive game plan, if he can really like hit it. And I'm really excited to see what that looks like.
Totally. And, Reed is jealous. He just wanted to see Kliff Kingsbury work out. Very jealous. You got to be able
dude,
to
Kliff Kingsbury, he's a good looking dude.
Yeah,
like,
we know
why,
Reed. We know.
No, it's not even a weird thing. It's just like as soon as Kliff took this job, I was like, great, now we can't go to the games with our girlfriends because he's gonna steal everybody's girlfriend.
But Sam, last question I have for you, brother. I want to wrap this. I want to talk about the draft a little bit. Because the whole thing about left tackle is a serious one. And obviously they got Cornelius Lucas, and we love Cornelius Lucas. We have confidence in him. But for a 17-game season, that confidence is wither a little bit. But do you think it's possible that Washington, or how viable do you think it is that Washington would trade back into the first to get a left tackle?
I think I've said this to every question you guys have asked today, but that's a great question because I was literally talking about that with my editor today, because I'm going to be at the draft in Detroit, and we were like, hey, like what happens if they trade back up? Because I'm going to be, like writing about who they take at number 2 or whatever. So how would we do that? I think it's possible they trade back up. Obviously, they have the capital to do it. It's a strong offensive tackle class, and you got to wonder, okay, if all these quarterbacks go in the first round, like the thing today is like Penix is going in the first half of the first round. Like if all that happens, like, what are some of these offensive tackle prospects? Where do they go, or how far do they slide? I think it's possible that they do, but I would say, like, look, I asked Adam Peters, I was like, hey, like it seems like you have a hole at left tackle. Like how, do you guys plan to address that in free agency, with the rest of free agency, or is that something that's focused for the draft? And he right away was like, we don't see it as a whole. We think Trent Scott and Cornelius Lucas are great. And that's fine. Like, he's saying that, publicly. I get why he says that. Believe him. I don't think that either of those dudes are going to be the starting left tackle come week 1.
So that's where the poker player comes in, Sam.
Right. I would say
either that or he's a compulsive liar and it's an issue. I'm just kidding.
I mean, he's got to make sure the agent doesn't get mad, the player doesn't get mad, whatever. But like,
what if he was like, actually, yeah, dude, it sucks. We're gonna bring somebody in.
I would say I would expect them to do something, whether it be 36, 40, or what, one of those early seconds, or whether they trade back in the first. I think all those things are on the table for sure.
All right, Sam, I can't thank you enough for taking some time out, some extra time for us to be able to keep up with some of these horrible jokes that come on and somehow persist to come on to this show somehow. Before we get out of here, just like to plug your social media handle, just in case anyone watching hasn't followed you yet and would like to, sir.
Yeah, you can follow me on X at SAM4TR, SAM4TR. Just read the Washington Post, football, non-football. It's a great organization that I love. So, yeah.
And now best friends with Kliff Kingsbury as well. We just found that out today. Sam, have a good night, brother. Enjoy the weekend.
All right. Thanks, man.
Bye, Sam.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Sam Fortier.
Sam was out here name dropping. He's like, hey, Phillip Rivers is over here. I asked Antonio Gates this, I was talking to Derwin James the other day. It's like, damn, celebrity.
Dude, much like Kyle, dude has been around the block and met some guys, but different ways. Those jokes have to stop, Kyle. That's disgusting. I can't believe this.
It is disgusting. But no,
it's not something to joke about. A man's preference.
To wrap up this episode, let's answer some of our fan questions. And Reed, you haven't been here in a while, so I know some of the guys are going to be really excited to be able to hear your thoughts on this. But his question from the Colonel.
I gotta retain myself from saying a joke.
Yeah, this one from the Colonel is a hot one. Does Marcus Mariota start opening day versus Baltimore in the 2024 season?
Ooh, first of all, that would be sick versus Baltimore. Is that happening?
No, but he's just saying.
Like,
okay, no, I was about to say, did I miss something? Did the schedule get leaked?
No.
No, he's not going to start. And, I know people be like, well, that's why you bring in a veteran just in case. Like, people say Drake May needs to sit. None of these guys need to sit in today's NFL if you're picked that high. I don't care. Throw them to the Wolves. No, I don't think so. I hope not. But although it would be sick to see a quarterback wearing number 0, do like that. Love that for him. But no, if he starts, I'm going to riot.
Yes, Colonel. I'm just going to be honest here. I'm just being perfectly honest. Anybody that I cannot stand this argument where let me say this. Marcus Mariota, why did he leave Atlanta last season? Why? Or 2 seasons ago, because they started Desmond Ridder, right? So you're telling me that Marcus Mariota is going to be okay with starting and then being able to be supplemented by the rookie quarterback that they just drafted right now. The same exact thing that happened in Atlanta. Do you think he's going to be cool with that? That's not a situation probably that's going to exist. I think that Marcus Mariota knows very well what his job is here, and that is to be the backup and to help groom the quarterback into being a professional quarterback and to not hold back in that regard and to be ready when his job is asked to come. But look, I know people have said that it's a smart way to start with Mariota. I'm just being honest here. Like, if you want a top 5 pick again next year, then yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. I think if they do draft Drake May, then there's like a slight possibility just because maybe Drake May's footwork isn't clean enough to the point where you want to throw him out there week 1 or whatever it may be. But I also think that with a better offensive line, you kind of give yourself that cushion as far as like, okay, if he's not that ready, at least the offensive line is going to be good enough to give him protection to where he'll be able to figure it out on the fly. Obviously, the saying goes, you don't get better at football without playing football. So you want your rookie quarterback out there getting as many reps as possible. So, yeah, I think that like if they draft Jaden Daniels, obviously, barring injury, it'll be Jaden Daniels week 1. But if they draft Drake May, I'd give it like a 2% chance that Mariota is starting week 1. But again, I think like a lot of people think in today's football, you only get better at football by playing football, especially rookie quarterbacks. You want to get them out there, get as many reps as possible. So I do think that, yeah.
In my personal opinion, the percentage should be higher for Mariota starting with Jaden Daniels than it would be with Drake May. And my only argument pertaining to that is the injury possibility. And that's the only
Well,
reason
yeah,
why
that's what I was saying, like barring some type of
Oh,
injury
yeah, I got
during
you.
like the preseason or something like
I'm
that.
just being a douche. Reed put me in a bad mood. Reed, this next question from the Colonel. I'm just kidding. He said, insider, he said Adam Schefter.
You're telling me making homosexual jokes about you would put you in a bad mood? Kyle.
But this question for the Colonel is, Adam Schefter said today that the Commanders, quote, will draft Jaden Daniels at number 2. You can pencil it in. If, in fact, we do draft Jaden Daniels, the Colonel says, is he going to fight Tress Way for the number 5?
Oh, that's true. That's a good.
That was such a hot topic on Twitter today
I know,
for like
a
no
lot-
reason.
that's a-
No reason whatsoever.
Yeah, a hypothetical scenario is a very. I get it. Look, Well, if I don't know. I mean, Tress has been so cool. 5 does look sick on a quarterback. Love that for him. Love that Jaden was 5. But I mean, people change numbers all the time, and who knows? Down the road, maybe you could switch back. You see that, and players are going to get cut during the preseason before the regular season. Could change his jersey up again. Maybe there'll be a sick number out there, but who knows what's going to happen. I think you keep it on Tress. Let Tress ride it out. You know, a lot of people don't want to give credit to a punter, but Tress has been our best player.
There's only
for,
one
like,
solution
as long
if
as
they
we can
draft
remember.
Jaden Daniels.
Or they have a
You got to
death fight.
cut. You got to cut Tress Way. I mean, that's just as simple as it goes. You got to cut him.
Yeah. All over a number. Yeah. It makes sense. Or you just put him in a cage and make them fight to the death. Whoever wins gets that
I like that
number.
one better, actually.
Yeah.
I got my money on Tress. I will
I
say
like
this.
Tress.
I don't know. He got that bionic like elbow. I don't know what's up.
He
in that
is.
arm,
He is
man.
he is a white, and Jaden is younger. I got my money on Jaden. That's what I'm saying. Come on.
Did you watch the women's NCAA championship the other night? Who were you rooting
hell
for,
yeah.
Reed? Who were
I
you
was rooting for
for?
LSU. Who were you rooting for?
Yeah,
Kyle?
right. You're lying.
What are you
You're
talking
lying.
about? Why wouldn't I?
Colonel, I'll say this.
That's funny.
Colonel, I will say this. I think the jersey number thing
They're the
is
same type of people who root against Colorado. they're like, just play the damn game. Quit showboating. They want them to lose every week. You know.
It's so true,
funny.
though.
Yeah,
It's so true.
It pisses them off to see. They're like, look at him do that stupid pointing to his Rolex. It's like, shut up. Shut the fuck up. But just say it. Just say why you don't like him. Because you're a piece of shit. Yeah, come on.
To bring this back to Pluto.
Sorry.
The Colonel, Colonel, I will say this. I don't think they'll have to fight over it. I think Tress is a grown man to the point where he would just give it up if it's a problem. Because if I'm Tress, dude, look, Mariota just took the number 0. Look, let's try to go for 100, Tress. Why not? Screw it.
I mean, honestly, if I'm Tress Way, I tell Jaden Daniels you want 5. You got to name your firstborn son Tress. I'm just saying.
Oh, that's a good
Tress
one.
Daniels. Yeah.
Or is 90 since Chase left? Does anybody have 99? If I'm Tress, I'd go with 99. That's not
First
bad.
of all,
Don't put that bad juju on him. We need his leg.
No,
yeah,
he
Clellan
can-
Farrell's.
Tress Way can
99.
spell any negative juju, okay?
But also
he
think
can
about it,
dispel
true.
all of it.
That's true.
The name Tress Daniels. That's a kind of sick name. That's
is
a kind
kinda
of sick
sick.
rap name. Young Tress Daniels coming up. Yeah.
Why's it got to be a rap name, Mike?
Because that's the kind of music that I listen to, Kyle. Why does that bug you?
I'm sure. Now this next question, Hall. This
We get
is
it.
from
You want Drake May. Come on.
this question from Tony Shivers, Hall. What are some players you think would be a good fit in the 3rd round?
Reed turns into Sam Howell talking to De'Ami Brown as soon as the podcast is over.
Yeah.
No, that's when JP is that whenever JP's tweeting with the black dude.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Yeah.
JP. Oh, yes. Old dirty bastard. You're like, what did he say again? He said somebody from Wu-Tang. He butchered their name.
No, he said something. He said it was something was Cap or something. And it was like, oh goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he always
but he
tries
also
to, like, talk
put
like
out a
hip. I'm
tweet
just
about
like-
how he was such a hip hop head, and it was funny because like the way he spelled it was just such a 40-year-old white man way to spell it.
I thought you were
So
talking about
just
JP from the
chill.
Junkie because every time
No.
they talked about 50 Cent, they'd be like 50 Cent. I'm like, oh, why you keep saying 50 like that? Like his name is
Yeah.
50 Cent.
We
Like,
need to
50
hurry up
Cent.
and cancel
50
those
Cent.
guys.
It's like,
Yeah,
damn.
they're menaces to society, to be honest with you.
No,
I
see,
don't-
Oh yeah, what was the question again? All I heard was Sam Cosby.
What
honestly.
players from Tony Shivers? What are some players you think would be a good fit in the 3rd round?
Oh, it had nothing to do with Sam Cosby. Goddamn.
No, 0.
um, 3rd round. I'd swear I would say the receiver might come in. What is our pick in the 3rd round? Like 5th?
There's in the 3rd round, it's
67,
30,
78.
67. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
67,
there's definitely. I see
100.
maybe a wide receiver going at 67 right there. Somewhere in that 3rd round, I could definitely see them targeting a receiver. Obviously, with Kliff Kingsbury, we know he likes to spread the defense out, put 3-4 wide receivers on the field at a time. So I do think that a wide receiver would be taken in the first 3 rounds. Me personally, I like Ricky Pearsall from Florida as my guy.
I like
And yes, he's a white.
Yeah, he is. I know. That's
Yeah.
what freks me out. a
And
little
Tony,
bit.
in the 3rd round, there are a plethora of positions that you can ultimately go with. But I think corner is somewhere to really look at and investigate if you lose out on a guy like TJ Tampa in the 2nd. Like, let's say, like we talked about with Sam, like, let's say you go wide receiver, you go left tackle in the 2nd round. That's where you could kind of get those kind of corners in the 3rd round with like Cam Hart, Kyrie Jackson. But also in the 3rd round, a guy like Ben Sinnott, the tight end from Kansas State, wouldn't be a bad option as well. I think there's a plethora of abilities there. Also think safety is not off the list because, yes, we do have Derek Forrest, we have Jeremy Chin here, but I do think that adding a safety is not out of the realm of possibility in the 3rd round. Is probably where you can get good profit out of there. But also a guy like James Williams, a linebacker from Miami, I think that he can play safety. And what we've seen with Joe Witt and Dan Quinn's defense, they literally move everybody everywhere. And James Williams was playing safety, was playing linebacker, was playing strong safety in the box. So he has done and is used to all that. I think he'd be a shoe-in fit here. And so I think those guys would be really good for the 3rd round. Reed, you got anybody?
What was the question?
3rd round prospects that you like. Stupid.
No, I mean it depends because so many different mock draft websites have so many people like they're so different. But like a corner with athletic traits that should be going or somewhere in the 30s, like somebody like Max Melton from Rutgers, he's interesting.
Yeah.
You already named like Ben Sinnott, some of these tight ends. Theo Johnson, the dude from Penn State, he's a tight end whose athletic scoring was crazy. He's somebody who maybe like a pick 100 or so they could possibly take a look at. I like Kate Stover personally from Ohio State. I think he's a good guy. That one has nothing to do with race, guys. That one is just tape. Let the tape speak for itself. And then
The white tape.
it really depends on how. Hell yeah, brother. And it really depends on what they do in the 2nd. But I mean, there's some very interesting guys, especially like a Marshawn Nealon. He's athletic as hell. The edge rusher from Western Michigan. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are all guys that you can really look at, and we know how much Kyle likes looking at guys, so it'll be fun.
It's funny because Ben and I were laughing at work today talking about the Chappelle Show and the racial draft. And you know that one part where the announcers were Bill Burr and the other white guy are sitting there and they do the woogity thing next to each other and
Yeah.
so freaking
funny.
So
And the white
funny.
people select Colin Powell. Everybody's like, hey.
Now the next question, I just wanted to say, guys, forgot to update you guys, but this Sunday and moving forward, we're gonna be doing our mock draft again. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be letting you guys know if you want to make one of the selections in the 1st round. So what we're going to do is, like, let's say, for instance, hypothetically, Hall's the 1st pick, I'm the 2nd, Reed's the 3rd, the fan pick would be the 4th. And then after that, you'd be the 8th pick. So a different person would be the 4th pick, another fan would be the 8th, another fan would be the 12th through that 1st round, and then we'd upload the results here to the podcast with a video that you guys submit with it if you can. So just letting you guys know that's going to be coming possibly this Sunday if we can get everything orchestrated in that amount of time. But the next question we have, this one is from our boy, Scott Hartley in the UK, so we have to give a huge shout out for. They actually interviewed F.A. Obata today on the One Point Safety Show.
Sick. I'm
You can
gonna
go
listen
on
to it on the way
YouTube,
home.
Spotify, iTunes, search for the One Point Safety Show. They just interviewed F.A. and Obata, and so it's a really good interview. The UK guys killed it.
Look at the boys coming on up. Look at that.
I love them boys. He says, "Hi Kyle, if we were able to trade back up into the first round, what do you think it will take to do so? And also, which offensive tackle prospect are you taking?" Hall?
So I think it depends. If you're trying to move up maybe like to the teens, like early 20s, I think that you would maybe have to give up that 36 pick and couple it with, I don't know, let's call it like a 5th round pick.
Possibly a third.
Yeah, possibly a third, but I'll just call it a 5th round pick. And I think that if you're trying to get into maybe like the back half of the late 20s, like maybe towards the end of the first round, maybe like I said, late 20s, 30, somewhere around there, then I do think that you can give him pick 40. And so I flipped that around. 36 and like the 4th or 3rd round pick. That's what I meant to say. And if you're going to get into the back of the end of the first round, it'll be 40 and maybe like a 5th round pick, 6th round pick, something like that. And so I do think that is possibly going to happen, more than likely not, because obviously there's a big void at left tackle like we just talked about with Sam.
Right.
And as far as like who I would want there, oh man, I do like Jordan Morgan, even though a lot of people project him as a guard. But I think that he could slide into right tackle possibly, because obviously Sam Cosmi's at right guard.
Morgan could play left tackle for sure. And
maybe left tackle as well.
They're small, but he's so athletic, and he's been good.
Yeah.
I'd take a flyer on it.
I haven't really looked at a mock draft lately. I don't even really know. Like,
I
I know all the tackles are. I know a lot of the tackles are going between like the teens, like the late 20s. So, I mean, you're gonna have your pick of a guy, whoever you like specifically. I think you're gonna have your pick. But
with left tackle at the end of the first, it's gonna be very short supply.
Yeah, there's a lot of good right tackles.
Yeah, Troy Fontenot from Washington
and I think he's gonna surprise and go fairly high.
J.C. Latham will probably be in the early teens, maybe late 20s.
Latham's right tackle.
Yeah, he's right tackle.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, like right tackle. I'm saying they trade to like the back half of like the.
Well, even
round.
so, like you're looking for a left tackle, right? And that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
That supply is so limited because a lot of these guys that are in the first round, like Fuaga, they're all right tackles. And so getting a left tackle is hard to do. So I would say
they say Mims can play. He's athletic enough to play both sides.
No,
I haven't watched any of them. I don't know.
He can barely play right tackle right now. Yeah, he's very raw.
Didn't he only play like 8 games or something like that?
So, it's something crazy like that.
No, I don't. The kid is a freak of nature, and he can obviously play in the NFL. I'm just saying right now he's not starting at left tackle. And if you're trading up for it, you better make sure the guy can start at left tackle.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so I would say Troy Fontenot. Jordan Morgan is you'd probably have to move into the first, but I don't think you'd have to move all the way up to the low 20s, Scott. But I think Hall hit the nail perfect. You probably have to give up 36 and your third, because you would be swapping, right? You'd be swapping that second for a first, but you'd be giving up a 3rd round pick. So you're targeting a team that doesn't really have a plethora of value picks in that medium 3rd to 5th range, and that's what you'd be looking to target. But I really like those type of prospects because the left tackle position is hard, and so that's why I'm saying if you can't trade up, if you don't want to give away your assets to build your team around, you can go after a guy like David Bakhtiari, take a flyer on him with Lucas starting, or you can trade for a possible left tackle. It's already starting in the NFL right now, and that's always a possibility as well.
What's it called? I got to take off. But real fast, Kyle, do you remember that time when we went out drinking and then you were like, "Hey, let's go back. Let's go back to my apartment. Let's keep drinking." And I was like, "Okay, yeah." So we did that, and it was just me and you there. And you're like, "Hey, let's play hide and seek." I was like, "Play hide and seek?" Okay. And you go, yeah. But here's the catch: you hide, and if I find you, you get to have sex with me. I'll be behind the couch. I said, "Kyle, what the hell?"
Where do you hear these conversations?
That was I don't know. Anyway, in my head. Anyway,
right,
folks, that's my time. I'll be here all week. See you guys next week.
All right, dude. See you. Now the next question is from Yam Sensei. Thank you, Yam Hall. What do you think are the odds of a trade back up into the first? And if so, what kind of package do we send off and which team to which player / position? Sorry that Scott kind of took I didn't really read this before, Yam, and I'm sorry. But what are the odds of the trade back up? I think the odds are high, probably around 40%, if I would say so, just because you are in a position right now that you don't have a left tackle. But that's why Adam Peters is adamant in saying that he is confident in Lucas and Trent Scott, so that nobody knows if he is worried and eager to move up to get one. They don't know it. But obviously, it comes down to common sense, comes down to playing poker. But the fact of the matter is, you're not truly in that position because there's always options that you don't have to go down that route. Yes, there are less long-term options, but are you really doing better by your team by offering more in assets in order to acquire that left tackle long-term, because you can't supplement your other positions that you need, right? And so that's why I think the thought process here has to be smart. Sorry, Yam. I know I kind of butchered your question there. The next one from Tim Towner. Josh Rosen, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Zach Wilson. It seems that teams are trying to move quarterbacks, but hold on to them too long and end up settling for peanuts. Stole that from Kyle. So do you think AP did the right thing by pulling the plug on Sam Howell when he did? Did he not get a fair shot with Rivera? Totally ignored his rookie year and whatever that mess was EB had last year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say he didn't get a fair shot just because if a first-round quarterback, even a second-round quarterback, even like a fringe third-round quarterback puts up those type of numbers as far as like the positives that you saw, like, yes, obviously down the stretch was horrible. I do think that once they traded Montez and Chase, everyone was kind of just like, all right, well, clearly the season's over. So, like, there's a lot of lackluster effort for the whole team. But I do think that, like I said, it was a first-round quarterback, second-round quarterback, and he showed the positives that he did show in the first half of the season. I do think that they would give him another shot, possibly. But again, this the end. Like everyone knows in the NFL, more times than not, except when it happens here, when a new regime comes in, they want to get their guy. They want to,
Right.
you know what I'm saying, start new things, get everything fresh. Obviously, we've seen that with Dan Quinn and this team, where they just brought in 20-something new players, completely whole new roster.
By the way,
exactly, completely, almost basically a whole new roster at this point.
Yeah.
And as far as like AP dealing Sam, I do think he did the best for Sam, which was send him out to Seattle, let him compete with Geno. He has a fresh new start with a whole new fresh coaching staff, new GM, all that, or not new GM, but new head coach, new offensive coordinator, all that. And I do think that, I mean, obviously he has weapons as well, like TJ Lockett and DK out there. But I do think that, and he got what did we get back? A third-round pick for him?
Yep.
Yeah, we got a
100.
third-round pick. Yeah, we got the third-round pick
We
back
gave
for him.
away a fourth. Was basically we swapped. We moved up. From
Yeah, we
fourth
moved
to the
up. That's
third
what it was. Yeah,
to
we
trade
moved
away
up.
Sam Howell.
Yeah. So Adam Peters definitely doing work. Definitely worked his magic with that trade, and I think that both sides won because Sam gets a fresh start, gets to go out to Seattle, compete with Geno for a starting job, and obviously opens up a spot here for a new quarterback. They get a fresh start here, new regime. Everyone kind of win-win. So I think that it was good for both sides. And I know people wanted to see Sam here, but we know how that goes. Like it would be the Taylor Heineke thing all over again with Carson Wentz. One mistake, one sack, a couple bad game stretch. Fans are going to be chanting for Sam Howell. He had the Howell hive, just like they had the Heineke hive. So it was best for both parties.
Now, Tim, let's put our conspiracy hats on, right? Halfway through the season, I've been hinting at this for a long time now. What last season offensively, it doesn't make sense what EB was doing if you're looking to try to prove that Sam Howell is a long-term starter for Washington. What it does prove is if EB is trying to do the most possible to get as much in return for Sam Howell as possible. And that's essentially what I think was happening, is that's why they were throwing as much as they were, because Sam automatically gets attributed the benefit of the doubt because of how much he had to throw the football. And not only that, he actually did really well with throwing the football. Yeah, he threw a lot of interceptions, but an offensive coordinator can say, well, if I limit the throw attempts, I can limit the interceptions, but I can still get that pop out of his arm. So I think that ultimately, yes, Adam Peters did right by Sam Howell. He sent him to a good situation where he can compete to be the starter. I'm sure that's all that Sam wants to do. So no, I don't think that Sam was given a not a fair shot. He started in the National Football League. There's guys that would kill for that opportunity just to be able to prove themselves. Yeah, was it a bad situation? Of course, but you're still starting in the National Football League, and it's an opportunity, it's a blessing, and a privilege. It's not something that is looked at negatively, in my personal opinion. Now, the next question we have is from Arch Deluxe. Thank you, Tim. Hall, he says, could it still work out for Stromberg? He was drafted in a year when it didn't make much sense to pair a rookie center with a first-year quarterback. The injury added to lack of film on him. New regime wants a veteran center to pair with a rookie quarterback. Not a great situation, but could he become the heir apparent and take over as badass contract is ending down the road? Leno had high praise.
Yeah, I mean, he got what was the whatever the alignments award is in college, I forget what it is. He got that in the SEC at Arkansas as a center. So obviously he has some merit and he has some skill to him. I do think that I mean, yeah, it's going to be pretty much a prove year. I mean, obviously you can't cut the guy you just drafted last year, and the injury definitely didn't help. But I do think that with a veteran sitter coming in and from the Cowboys, what is his name again?
Badass. Tyler Badass. That's what he's saying.
Oh yeah, yeah, little badass, little Boosie. Um, he can kind
No
of
Diddy.
sit, he can sit, learn from him, and I know that Ron talked about position flex. I know he got some reps at guard as well, so maybe he sits behind a guy like Sam Cosmi, learns from him a little bit and whatnot. But I do think that just based off coaching, maybe a guy like OG Bobby Johnson can bring out what skills he does have and use them. But I think as of right now, he's going to be nothing more than a rotational player if a guy gets injured.
I still think it could work out without a freaking doubt. Here in Washington, we know very all too well over the years, been consistent, that centers get injured, and they get injured a lot. And so you need to have a plethora of them. I think Stromberg has the type of background that you could look at and say, yeah, you're the third center on the roster, whatever you want to say. But the fact is that he's somebody who could come in and be able to do well for you. When he was on the field last season, he wasn't getting beaten like a drum. He was doing his job. So yeah, I still think that Stromberg very well could work out for him in the long run because you don't know what's going to go on with injuries. And being able to be availability is more productive than productivity, right? I'm probably not saying that correctly. But essentially, just be healthy, be available, and in the long term, that will work out for you if you continue to work hard. And I'm sure Stromberg is not walking around with a somber, sad face. I'm sure he is working hard to be able to start. So I do think it is the sky is not over for Stromberg. Obviously, there is a black mark on any player here who is from the previous regime, but you also have low expectations from your coaching staff, so you could do a lot to prove that you should stay here, right? That's a good way to look at it. Now, the next question we have is submitted by Twitter. It's our last one from Just Your Average Fly Guy, and this is a great one. He messaged me afterwards saying, if this isn't a good question, let me know. I'll send you another one. I'm like, dude, send me as many as you want. We'll answer all of them.
Right.
I don't care. Sometimes I forget, and I overlook them, and I apologize. But for the most part, I will read all of them, except for Tim. Tim does send me, 30,000, and I pick the best. I always do, Tim. I do. I love you, Tim. His question is, drafting a quarterback at 2 seems high. That being said, how much of a role does Kliff Kingsbury play in the quarterback selected? The reason I asked, let's say Kliff Kingsbury gets his quarterback, and by year 2, the quarterback he wanted slays it, and we're killing it. Kliff leaves. Is Adam Peters considering that or not?
I definitely think they're considering it, and I definitely think that Dan Quinn's considering it to the point where it was an interview with somebody, but he basically said that because everyone made a big deal about how I think it was Logan actually said this, where he called up his former players, coaches, and whatnot from Atlanta and said, "Hey," he kind of self-evaluate, what can I do better? What did I do wrong? And I think the outcome that he got from that was he had Kyle Shanahan, obviously. Matt Ryan went to the Super Bowl. Not Matt Ryan, Kyle Shanahan, and then Mike McDaniels, all those guys leave. Raheem Morris, all those guys, they leave. And they replaced him with Steve Sarkisian, whole new offense, different scheme, whatnot. Didn't really work out. And he said that he wanted to have a guy in the waiting that can run the same system, teach it, and just kind of keep the ball rolling per se. So I do think that it's going to come down to who Adam Peters likes, who Dan Quinn likes, and then Kliff, can you work with this guy? Or what do you like in him, Kliff? Kliff will have obviously some input. It's not going to be like, hey, you don't like him, but you're going to have to work with him type thing. But I think it comes down to Adam Peters will more than likely be here, hopefully longer than Kliff Kingsbury. Dan Quinn, hopefully more than likely, will be here longer than Kliff Kingsbury. And if the offense is booming in, like you said, this year, next year, just because it's an offensive league, everyone knows this, the hot coordinators, usually get the calls for the head coaching jobs first. So if Kliff rolls out a good offense for a year or two,
Did you just
he'll
call
get.
Kliff hot?
I mean, he's hot. You heard Reed. We can't take our wives and girlfriends.
You can't. Yeah.
No, but he's the hot name, and he'll be the hot name if the offense takes off, just like everyone thought with Eric Bieniemy. If his offense takes off, he'll be the hot name for our head coaching position. So, long story short, it's going to come down to who Adam Peters likes, who Dan Quinn likes, and Kliff, can you work with this guy? Because more than likely, like I said, Quinn and Peters should be here longer than a guy like Kliff Kingsbury if he wants to get back into head coaching or not.
Look, Flower Guy, it's a fantastic question. We kind of went through this in our mock draft on Red Zone and Lab not too long ago. What I think happened when let's look at San Francisco, right? And what does Adam Peters, John Lynch have in San Francisco? They have Kyle Shanahan, the head coach, who's also the offensive coordinator, who has that sustainability, right? He has that consistency. They don't have to worry about that replenishment of offensive system, correct? Because Kyle Shanahan will continue to be there. They don't have to worry about the success of the offensive coordinator leaving because Kyle Shanahan will consistently be there to run that offense. So it's a drastically different situation here. In my personal opinion, I do think you're correct there. Adam Peters cannot put all of his eggs in the basket of what Kliff Kingsbury wants because who says it's going to work out with Kliff Kingsbury? Your contract is probably longer than his, as Adam Peters is staying. But I would imagine that as a organization, Kliff Kingsbury, Dan Quinn, Joe Witt, they all, Martin Mayhew and all said, they have a kind of structure for what they want out of that position and what they want the vision to be for that position looking forward. And they provide that to Adam Peters. Adam Peters is coming to go and find that, and they bring it to them, and then they discuss the parameters around. So regardless of who Adam Peters picks, it's going to be based on what Kliff Kingsbury wants. And so regardless, Kliff should be happy with what he wants. I don't think Kliff Kingsbury should be in the position of saying, I only want this guy. Because in that breath, you being offensive coordinator, you should be able to adjust to whatever quarterback you're given to and be able to find success with. You shouldn't have to all wager on one certain quarterback to fall to you. You should be able to have a plan for each one of those guys. And so, in my opinion, it's going to come down to Adam Peters and Dan Quinn and company fitting that structure. Now, if Adam Peters goes outside that structure, that's a different animal. And I don't think Adam Peters is going to go that way just based on what he said to the media and the fan base. So I will say that it's going to come down to Adam Peters and company. It's going to be a commander's decision. In my personal opinion, it's not going to be an Adam Peters decision. It's not going to be a Dan Quinn or Kliff Kingsbury decision. It's going to be a commander's decision.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that.
All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. If you've made it this far, you're a frickin' champion. Thank you to everybody who submitted in questions. Thank you to Sam Fortier for running the Fortier with us here today and being able to talk some ball with us. Hall, appreciate you, brother, as always. Everyone,
Yes, sir.
appreciate you for your submissions of questions, for watching this. You're freaking awesome. Just want to say again, if you go watch the 1 Point Safety Show on YouTube, all the podcast platforms, go watch UK Boys in their interview with F.A. Obata. It's a fantastic one, man. It truly, truly is. Those boys did a great job, and they deserve the support. All right, everybody. We will see you guys again on Sunday. Do not miss it. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And we'll see you then. Have a safe, great weekend, everybody. Don't do anything stupid. We'll see you then. Washington football. Woo!
Peace.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.